Good evening and a warm welcome to Personal Finance. I'm Kukuletu Cele. Alex Cook, the Chief Executive of GCI Wealth, joins us tonight to discuss the new and emerging dynamics in retirement planning, given significant four trends that come to mind that could greatly impact your retirement savings as we head into 2016. Good to have you with us this evening, Alex. When it comes to retirement savings, I think everyone thinks of 15% that you should put away monthly for you to ensure that you have sufficient savings or in your retirement kitty by the time you retire. But I think the world of retirement has gotten so much more complex now in South Africa, not so?
Definitely. You just think about the normal progression of retirement. You start out at 0 years of age and you study and you educate yourself for the first 25 years. And then from those 25 to 45 years of age, you're meant to be accumulating capital, retirement capital, putting away your 15% and accumulating that cash. What happens in most circumstances, though, is all you're doing is you're settling debt and you're educating kids. Yeah. Perhaps you're getting divorced, perhaps you're getting married, but you're not saving a whole lot of money. From the age of 45 until 63, those 18 years, they're really used to accumulate large amounts of money for your retirement years. The problem is, whatever you accumulate then is meant to last for the rest of your life. Now, in the past, life ended at 83. 83, 87, you were expected to hop the mortal coil, so to speak.
I like that phrase.
It's changing. It's changing. With modern medicine, you're likely to live until 90, perhaps longer. The days of 110 are probably not far away. So in effect, you're using 18 years of savings, and bear in mind, you're not saving your entire salary. You're saving 15, if you're lucky, at 18, 20% of your salary, and that's meant to last you for the rest of your life, which might be a very long time.
I'm happy you touched on age because clearly there are a lot more cures out now in the market and illnesses are being cured a lot quicker. But how does one determine that? So my mother, for instance, is 57 at the moment and planning to retire in the next 3 years. But given the market volatility and the outcomes and the outlook, she is not really sure if her current investment strategy is the correct approach to be taking, given the nervousness that's around now.
It's quite scary, isn't it? I mean, the markets have lost a tremendous amount in the past few days. The rand's been decimated, and the natural tendency is to say, oh, let me sit on the sidelines, let me get out of here, park my money in the money market for a while and just wait for better days. The problem is when those better days come, they've left you behind because you're still sitting in the money market. So a common theme in most funds is to go into what's called a life stages model, where you start out with a risk profile, let's call it a moderate risk profile, and as you get closer and closer to retirement, you start going down the risk curve and you become more and more conservative to the point where at retirement age, 60 or 63, you're very conservative. The problem is you're now in a money market or money market plus 2 type fund, and that's meant to last you for the rest of your life. With inflation where it is and where it's probably going to go with this rand having weakened so much, that's not going to be good enough. So those life stages models which take you down the risk curve are probably not a good thing. And what you need to think of is not the end game being retirement, but the end game being death.
Exactly. So what should I be telling my mother to tell or ask her financial advisor?
First thing you need is a proper asset liability model. So what that is basically is a retirement plan. Figuring out how much capital you need now based on the income you require to last you for the rest of your life. So to give you an example, a person who needs, say, 50,000 in today's terms, and let's say they are 60 years of age. By the time they get to age 63, they'll need about 58,000. By the time they get to age 83, they'll need about 180,000.
That's a huge jump.
Yes. So you need to be in the right risk profiled fund, which means you need to have someone advising you as to which portfolio to go into. So what we're finding is quite a few financial planners, they are fantastic at structuring the overall picture, the overall plan. So the first thing your mother needs is a financial planner, a wealth manager that's going to get her to a safe and secure retirement. The second thing she needs is a well-structured portfolio. Now, the wealth manager is not necessarily the same person that structures the portfolio. There are over 1,200 portfolios in this country to choose from. Internationally, it's worse. Internationally, there are over 200,000. So I'd suggest that whichever wealth manager she chooses has an asset management firm behind her or behind him, figuring out which portfolios to invest in to get to that safe and secure retirement.
Exactly. Which brings up two major issues. You mentioned the ever-increasing slide of the kind of capital that you'll need for retirement, and there's a Pac-Man that we often make an example of, inflation, which will certainly play an impact there.
Probably a bigger and bigger impact. I mean, with
exactly.
With what's the rand? The rand lost, what did it lose yesterday? 10%?
Exactly.
10% in one day. Now, when we're importing 5 million tons of maize and we've just lost 10% of our buying power, it means inflation is going to start grabbing hold. So the worst place you can possibly be is entirely in money market. It feels very warm and fuzzy, feels like a cozy place to be, but it's dangerous.
Exactly. Coming back to the number of investment opportunities that you highlighted, diversification, is that always the best strategy to
We've seen it play out so beautifully over these past few days, in fact the past 3 months, where certain fund managers are fantastic at performing certain jobs. What you want is a combination of fund managers that perform as a whole very, very well. So diversification is important, absolutely.
Let's leave my mother for a moment and come back to me and some of my peers in the industry. The changing family dynamics is also something that is playing an impact. Some people get married, others getting divorced, children to raise. And as you've alluded to, the cost of living also getting far too high. I take it this, again, just highlights the importance of having those meetings with your financial planners or advisors to adequately look at the kind of lifestyle needs that you need and how that impacts on your retirement savings.
Absolutely. What it really boils down to is discipline. There's a fantastic book. I recommend that everyone reads it. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. It's wonderful. It was written in the 1920s, 1930s, and it speaks to biblical times. And the rules then were no different to the rules now. First of all, pay yourself first. So put a portion of money away for retirement for when you can no longer work. Now, what we see a lot of people do, and this doesn't just go for lower level employees, it goes for executives as well, is they live up to their paycheck. So let's say they're earning 100,000 and it gets increased to 120,000 in a very good year. They start living to 120,000. So they make their lifestyle adjust to their pay rather than living the life they're happy living and then saving the rest. So the first thing is save. Save whatever you think you should be saving, and we recommend at least 15%, preferably more. Now the older you get, of course, the more you need to save if you haven't started saving already. Yeah.
Having said that, in the dynamics then of 2016, the key fundamentals that South African consumers need to look at when trying to augment their retirement savings, should they be looking at other products like tax-free savings accounts, and do they actually make much of a difference in any case, or looking at alternative means of investment?
We've got a bit of a biased view against tax-free savings accounts. Well,
really?
They look quite useful on the surface, but for the person who's not in a very, very high tax bracket, they don't offer much benefit. And for the person who is in a very, very high tax bracket, the amount they can invest is too small. So vehicles like retirement annuities often make more sense. Yeah.
Talk to us about retirement annuities a lot further, because a moment ago we just had a conversation about transference of funds within retirement annuities, and the costs is certainly something that came up quite significantly there. The previous guest was actually alluding to new sexier marketing and sexier tools of investment, but instead of, if you've been in the game for over, 20 years, instead of transferring, rather open up a separate RA. Would that be advisable?
Depends which RA you're in. So some RAs are very, very expensive. You probably want to avoid those kind of RAs, old-fashioned type RAs, as we call them, and go towards a more modern, simpler RA.
Describe the difference for us. What are the key
fundamentals? The one is a life fund, the other one is a unit trust-based fund.
Okay.
And with the unit trust-based fund, there are no exit penalties. If you want to transfer it to another company, you know what you pay up front. It's a better route of getting in. With the more old-fashioned vehicle, you pay a large amount of commission up front. You're never quite sure what the value is until you want to transfer it. And at that point, you get told that there are penalties involved for transferring it. So keep it simple. Like with all investments, keep them simple. RAs are quite a useful tool as an estate planning tool. They're a fantastic estate planning tool.
Cost implications and fees, is that also something that we need to keep top of mind?
You need to bear it in mind, but watch out for making the wrong decision based only on cost.
Cheap doesn't always mean best.
Correct.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, we've certainly said quite a bit, but let's get a quick recap of tonight's conversation by understanding what the key takeaway points are from tonight's talk. Alex, as we start off 2016, there usually are several resolutions that consumers want to make, and when it comes to their retirement savings, I'm sure you've got a few suggestions and tips.
The first thing I would say you need to do is get a wealth manager. Get a wealth manager that's dedicated to getting you towards a safe and secure retirement. Get that wealth manager to structure a correct portfolio for you that's suitable for your risk profile, and also be wary of being too conservative. As comfortable as it feels, being too conservative is not necessarily the best thing for your future. And I'd also strongly recommend to just start saving. Many people think that their pension fund is adequate. The odds are it's not going to be adequate. Unless you know what number you're fighting towards achieving, you don't know where you're heading. So get a plan going, get an asset liability model going that's going to give you a number that you need to achieve by the time you get to retirement. And one more thing, don't panic. So with the markets the way they are, don't panic. It never seems like the right time to invest, but just get started.
How can we not? Because given all the noise that we hear about in the market, we report on it on a day-to-day basis. For someone like myself, would this be the opportune time to get maybe not overexposure, but increased exposure slightly to the equity space?
You're young. You've got another 30 years ahead of you.
Oh, longer maybe even, huh?
Perhaps. I'd strongly suggest it. Yeah. Cash would be the worst place for you to be right now.
Indeed. Alex, we'll leave it there for this evening's conversation, but thank you so much for your suggestions as to how best to tackle your retirement savings, especially as we head into a new year where there's several impacts or elements at play that could impact your retirement savings. But a big thank you once more to Alex Cook, who's the CEO of GCI Wealth. And you can be sure to get in touch with us via Twitter, at CNBC Africa, using the hashtag personalfinance410, and share some of your suggestions and stories with us. But from myself, Gugulethu Cele, and the team, it's goodbye for now.